Today, I want to tell you 3 stories from my life. That's it. No big deal. Just 3 stories.
This is the founder of Apple. His story is not about tech, it's about becoming who you are no matter the cost.
The first story is about connecting the dots. I dropped out of Reed College after the first 6 months, but then stayed around as a drop-in for another 18 months or so before I really quit. So why'd I drop out? It started before I was born. My biological mother was a young, unwed graduate student, and she decided to put me up for adoption. She felt very strongly that I should be adopted by college graduates, so everything was all set for me to be adopted at birth by a lawyer and his wife. Except that when I popped out, they decided at the last minute that they really wanted a girl. So my parents, who were on a waiting list, got a call in the middle of the night asking, "We've got an unexpected baby boy. Do you want him?" They said, "Of course." My biological mother found out later that my mother had never graduated from college and that my father had never graduated from high school. She refused to sign the final adoption papers. She only relented a few months later when my parents promised that I would go to college. This was the start in my life. And 17 years later, I did go to college.
But he naively chose a college that was almost as expensive as Stanford. And all of his working class parents' savings were spent on that college tuition. And after 6 months, he couldn't see the value in it. He had no idea what he wanted to do with his life, and no idea how college would help him figure it out. And there was, spending all of the money his parents have saved their entire life.
So I decided to drop out and trust that it would all work out okay. It was pretty scary at the time, but looking back, it was one of the best decisions I ever made.
The minute he dropped out, he could stop taking the required classes that didn't interest him and begin dropping in on the ones that look far more interesting. And it wasn't all romantic. He didn't have a dorm room, he slept on the floor in friends' rooms, and he returned Coke bottles for the 5 cents deposit just to buy food. And he would walk 7 miles across town every Sunday night to get 1 good meal a week at the Hare Krishna temple.
I loved it. And much of what I stumbled into by following my curiosity and intuition turned out to be priceless later on. Let me give you one example.
Reed College at the time offered perhaps the best calligraphy instruction in the country. Every poster, every label on every drawer was beautifully hand calligraphed. He decided to take a calligraphy class. He learned about serif, sans serif, and varying the amount of spaces between the different letter combinations, and about what makes great typography great.
It was beautiful, historical, artistically subtle in a way that science can't capture.
And he found it fascinating. None of it seemed to have any practical applications in his life. But 10 years later, when he designed the first Macintosh computer, it all came back to him, and he designed it into the Mac. It became the first computer with beautiful typography. If he didn't have dropped in on that single course in college, the Mac would never have multiple typefaces.
And since Windows just copied the Mac, it's likely that no personal computer would have them.
If Steve Jobs never had dropped out, he would never have dropped in on that calligraphy class, and personal computers might not have the beautiful typefaces they have today. At the time, it was impossible for him to connect the dots. But looking back, 10 years later, everything became clear. The lesson from his experience is that you can't connect the dots looking forward. You can only connect them looking backwards. Because of that, he believed that you have to trust that your dots will somehow connect in the future. You have to trust in something like your gut, your destiny, life or karma.
And that will make all the difference. My second story is about love and loss.
Steve Jobs felt lucky because he found what he loved doing early in life. He and Steve Wozniak started Apple in his parents' garage when they were 20 years old. And they worked hard, and within 10 years they had grown Apple into just 2 of them in the garage into a $2 billion company with over 4,000 employees. They had also released the Macintosh, one of their greatest creations, and he just turned 30.
And then I got fired. How can you get fired from a company you started?
As Apple grew, they hired a new talented executive to help run the company with them. and for the first year or so everything went just well. But eventually, their vision about the future began to diverge, and that disagreement led to a major conflict, and the board of directors sided with the other executive. At 30 years old, Steve Jobs had been pushed out of the company that he had created. The work that had defined his entire adult life was suddenly gone. For several months, he didn't know what to do. He felt like he had let down the previous generations of entrepreneurs.
I met with David Packard and Bob Noyce and tried to apologize for screwing up so badly. I was a very public failure, and I even thought about running away from the valley.
But slowly, he realized something important. He still loved what he did. And being pushed out of Apple had not changed that. Even though he had been rejected, his passion had remained. So he decides to start over. Steve Jobs said later that getting pushed out of Apple was one of the best things that have ever happened to him. The heaviness of success was replaced by the freedom of being a beginner. And that freedom led him into the most creative periods of his life. Over the next 5 years, he started a company named Next and another company called Pixar. And he also met a woman that would later become his wife. Pixar later created the world's first fully computer animated featured film, Toy Story, and it became one of the most successful animation studios in the world.
In a remarkable turn of events, Apple bought Next,
which brought Steve Jobs into the company again. And the technology that they have developed at Next became a great part of the Apple's modern operating system. And Steve Jobs believed that none of this would happen if he hadn't got fired from Apple. It was painful at the time, but in the hindsight, it was exactly what he needed. One of the biggest lessons he shared was that life will sometimes hit you hard, but you must not lose faith. The only thing that was keeping him going was the love of his work, and that is why he believed that people must find the things that they love. And this applies to work just as much as relationships.
Your work is going to fill a large part of your life, and the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work.
The only true way to do good work is to love what you do. And if you not have found it yet, you should keep looking and don't settle. Over time, when you find something you truly love, it only gets better as the years go on.
My third story is about death.
Steve Jobs came across a quote that said that you should live your life as if it was the last. And the idea of this stayed with him for decades. For more than 30 years, he looked himself in the mirror each day, asking himself, if this was my last day, would I do what I'm about to do today?
And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know I need to change something.
Thinking about death became one of his most powerful tools to make important decisions. It helped him to ignore fear, embarrassment, pride, and external expectations, because in the face of death, those things no longer seems important.
You are already naked. There is no reason not to follow your heart.
About a year before he was giving his speech, Steve Jobs was diagnosed with cancer. A scan revealed a tumor in his pancreas, and at first doctors thought that this was incurable and told him that he only had 3 to 6 months left. He was advised to go home and get his affairs in order, which essentially means preparing for death, saying the things that he might not have time to say later.
It means to say your goodbyes. I lived with that diagnosis all day. Later that evening, I had a biopsy where they stuck an endoscope down my throat, through my stomach and into my intestines, put a needle into my pancreas and got a few cells from the tumor.
Fortunately, after some further testing, doctors discovered that this was some kind of rare pancreas tumor that could be cured by surgery. Then he had the operation and he recovered.
This was the closest I've been to facing death, and I hope it's the closest I get for a few more decades.
After going through that experience, he said that he understood death more clearly. No one wants to die, but death is something everyone shares. In his view, death is life's greatest change agent because it clears out the old and make way for the new.
Right now, the new is you. But someday, not too long from now, you will gradually become the old and be cleared away. Sorry to be so dramatic, but it's quite true.
His message was simple. Your time is limited, so do not waste it living someone else's life. Do not be trapped by dogma or the opinions of others. Instead, have the courage to follow your own heart and your intuition, because deep down they somehow know how you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary.
Stay hungry, stay foolish. And I have always wished that for myself. And now, as you graduate to begin anew, I wish that for you. Stay hungry, stay foolish. Thank you all very much.